Hey guys, Phil Filkins from Ridgeline Armored Tanks. This is going to be part 3 of our 1/6 scale Japanese Hygo Type 95 build. In this part we're going to be covering scaling and blueprinting. But I was thinking about it and I'm oversimplifying it. In between those two we actually have scanning, drawing, drafting, CAD, and then blueprinting. So I know it's kind of a lot, but I'm going to kind of go through it as quickly as I can. For some of you guys who might not know how to be able to take a drawing and then get it to what you want, so you can actually have some good reference material to build from. And I'm sure some of you guys are already understand all this stuff, but this is really, I'm just going to really briefly touch over it. And if any of you still need more information, please send me a message and I can always make another video to try to explain it in a little bit more detail. So, with that said, this is our drawing from part 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put it in the scanner. And the scanner that I use is a HP ScanJet 4730, or I'm sorry, 4370. Off again. And it's a older scanner, but I've had a lot of good uses with it for many different projects. But it's really whatever you're comfortable with. So I'll kind of get into it briefly on how you navigate that, because most HPs are very similar if it's an independent type of scanner, which I highly recommend. That's what you guys get, independent scanner, because it has more flexibility, I think, in the software. So let me go ahead and put this in, and we will get started. Okay, so when you put your drawing in, you're going to want to put it face down to the glass, and you're going to want to try to get it in the corner, so you know that your drawing is going to come out square. Speaking of scaling, this is another thing that I use to make up to 1/6 scale. It's a replica of a 1952 national television, which has a 2.5-inch screen in it, and it's running on a Raspberry Pi. So, like I said, if you guys can learn this or understand it, you can really make a lot of really cool stuff. I use it almost daily. Okay, now that we have our drawing in the scanner, we can open up the software. And what happens for HPs, they give you some options of how do you want to scan it. You want to scan as a picture, as film, make copies, or scan as a document. I always scan it as a document, and there's some reasons for it. If you do it as a picture, it's more or less going to let you scale up in pretty much whole numbers. And it's not going to really allow you to be able to manipulate it how you might need to manipulate it if you're getting some other type of drawing, like if it's a picture or something like that, and you figured out the math, and it's going to be these non-whole numbers. Then you're not going to really want to use pictures. You're going to want to use scanned documents. And the other reason why is, as soon as this software opens up, I'll tell you why. On this page, it gives you some options, like do you want to scan it in color, grayscale, black and white. For me, I usually just leave it as color, or if I'm running low on colored ink, then I'll change it to black and white. But the other important thing is it says where do you want to send the scan image? I always put it as copy to clipboard. And the reason why is because we're going to want to try to build a layer of scan images into making it into somewhat of a blueprint. And sometimes I do get things enlarged at Kinko's, but I've always noticed that when you do it, sometimes the line thickness and things like that come out really thick over there, even if you have it adjusted for different settings. So what I'll always do is scan it myself, print it out, and then have a really clear drawing of it, a really accurate depiction of what it's going to be in 1/6 scale. So what I did is I just brought in this square so I can get a closer isolation of the area I'm interested in, and that's going to be this front plate of the tank. So once you get it in there, you're going to hit the magnifying glass in the corner to get a closer image of it. Also doing that, you also get usually a higher resolution of a scan. So what I do is I'll hit resize, I'll put 583, I'll lock it, and then I'll unlock it. And the reason why is because I'm just getting a general idea of how big it's going to be, and I'm going to actually, paste this onto a sheet of paper that's going to be a standard sheet of paper. So it gives me my dimensions right here. So the width of this is going to be 11.06, and the height of it is going to be 11.23. So I'm going to bring it in more, and the best I can do is 9.6. Let me bring it in a little bit more over here, and still I'm still over 9. But I really just want this plate right here. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring it all closer down to it, and I'm going to forget about the road wheels for now and the track detail. And now I'm at 9.21 on the width, and for the height it's 6.53. So that seems pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and lock it down, and then I'm going to rotate it. And the reason why is because of the orientation of the paper that you're going to be pasting it to. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and hit accept. As that's accepting or doing another scan of it, I'm going to go over to the start window, and I'm going to open up a Word document. Okay, so in this Word document, it's going to set up with margins. And the best thing to do is, because you're going to try to use the maximum area of the paper, always go to page layout, hit margins, and then I've already done it before, but what you're going to have to do is go into custom margins and go 0, 0, oops, 0, 0, and 0. You're going to zero everything out, and then hit OK. It's going to ask if you want to fix it. You're going to say ignore, and then it's going to put it all the way to the very edge of the paper. And let me minimize this real quick. This just finished scanning, and it's going to ask, do you want to make scan another image? I always click no, because what ends up happening is that you do scan a second image, and it'll put it on the clipboard, but I have no idea what happens to the first image. I can never find it again. So I'm going to go ahead and hit no. I'm going to go over to our Word document, and I'm going to hit paste. And there you go. There it is. On my scanner, I don't know why, but I get these red lines. I don't know if it's the scanning head vibrating or something like that as it's doing its pass. But it's no big deal for me. So what you're going to do is go back in it, do another scan, and then what I would do is overlap it so you're getting this area and going down. And then what I do is I'll take a few different images. Well, I don't have anything ready, but what I'll do is I'll take a few images that overlap, and then I'll hold them up through the light, and I'll see the images for the two sheets of paper, and I'll line them up, and then I'll tape them down, and then I'll start building my image that way. If you don't want to do it that way, you can always just, like I said, go to Kinko's or somewhere like that. But I now know that this is 1/6 scale. I can print it out. I have an idea. I can kind of visualize it, how big it's going to be. And from there, I'll take this and I'll put it back on my drafting table, and I'll start figuring out the locations of all the bolt holes and things like that. But if you don't want to do that, there's another option, which is going to go into CAD drawing, and that's a free software that I usually use quite a bit. It's from a company called emachineshop, and emachineshop usually wants you to use their software so you can do some drawings, your CAD drawings, and you can email it to them and they'll build your part. So for some of you guys who want to build something but don't necessarily have all the tools to do it, that is one option. For me, the most part, I just use their software because it's free and it's pretty easy to use. So what you can do is, I had a problem just recently where, let me flip this around so you guys can see my beautiful face, where I had about 95% of my drawings done and they're all finalized, and I was ready to build a little bit more than where I was at. And my laptop crashed, the hard drive crashed on it, and a lot of my drawings are just wiped out. Luckily I had a backup, but it wasn't my up-to-date drawings. So what I had to do last night was, let me show you. Okay, I'm gonna try to attempt to shoot this with me just holding it, but you can see the drawing that we just did, but this image is reversed. So I had this already drawn, but I needed some more detail, and that was what I had in the drawing I lost, and that was an opening that goes here, and that opening is for a final drive that I've seen in a lot of photos, but I haven't been able to find any type of drawing or blueprint or anything like that. So I've just checked a lot of my reference photos, and I can see that opening, which is for the, like I said, for the final drive. So I looked around and I found a model kit from Fine Molds, and it had that opening. It's not exact, I think it's a little off, but I figured, hey, it's probably close enough for me to try to figure this stuff out. So I scanned this at 583%, and I got this image. So what I was able to do was take this image, and one thing I could have done was put it on my drafting table and then figured out what this diameter was and these angles, and then put it back into this drawing, and then I would be able to get it. But what I ended up doing, let's go back to the other computer. Okay, so what I ended up doing was, here's that image. I used the emachineshop software, which is free, and there's an option when you open up a new drawing, or any drawing, if you go to Edit, Preference, General, there is it's called Tracing Paper. You just click that and hit OK, and what happens is, let me minimize that drawing behind it, and what ends up happening is you can draw over something. So for me, I used it to figure out the diameters and the angle of that hole, so I can be able to put that final drive in, which it might be a little smaller than what it actually is, but for me it's good enough to start for right now. So here's my drawing that I did have that's missing it, and after doing that, this is the drawing I have now that has the opening for the final drive. So hopefully, I know this is kind of quick, it's a lot of information. Hopefully I didn't mess up too much and not cover some things, but hopefully you have kind of a basic idea of how you can use these to blow it up to 1/6 scale, then use that to get you some type of a drawing or CAD to be able to make machine drawings, so you can actually machine them. And there you go. So you can do it like this. The same principle works with the other drawing. Let me open this back up. The other one, where's that? This one? Yeah. We'll move back up. We'll open up the emachineshop software, and then you can see that part. So what you can do is just start drawing, and there's a lot of tutorials on the emachineshop website. They work really well. Within a few evenings, I'm pretty sure most of you can learn this fairly quickly. Another option is that you can draw this whole thing. Okay, I had to move over to my other computer, which actually has my CAD files in it for my Type 95. So if you do the overlay method, the tracing paper method, you can draw the whole thing, and even though it's not to scale, like say you know a fixed dimension, say from this corner to that corner, and it's just because you traced it, the computer doesn't know the dimensions of it. What you can do is you can highlight the whole thing, and it tells you the length and the height of it. What you can do is just put times in it. You can go times and then enlarge it by whatever percentage you need to enlarge it by, and that will give you your actual 1/6 scale part. But you have to do it in both of these, because it will warp the image for a second, but once you do both of them, it'll be fine. Even holes will kind of get elliptical, but then they'll go back to being round, perfectly round. So don't be afraid. if that happens. So sometimes I'll do that. I'll just do an overlay. I'll get the drawing and then I'll scale it up to what I need it to be. Hopefully that makes sense. And so for reference material, let me kind of go over that really quick. I kind of was showing you it a little bit. Let me go back to my pile of papers. I always break things down in kind of like 4 areas. I have scanned images, which I start from. Scanned parts that I use, whether they be from model kits or whatever other type of material I can get. Reference photos, and then of course my actual CAD drawings. And what I usually do is, that's how I'm able to generate. I use a little bit of everything, and I'll kind of build it up. So one problem you'll have is trying to find dimensions of things. Let me plug this real quick. So like if you want to build a road wheel, you can get the dimensions of the face of it, or maybe even the side of it, but you're not going to know the details of the cross section. So what I'll do is I'll buy a model kit, and I'll take apart and I'll cut it in half. Let's see, that focuses in. I'll cut it in half and then I'll scan it, and then from the scan, which is right here, I'll be able to figure out what the dimensions are going to be, and then I'll be able to find out all the detail that I need to. So that's usually what I do with model kits. They're all like sacrificial lambs for me, and that goes for everything. I started building up this gearbox, even though I don't have. Let me plug my power back in. I don't have all the detail like that final drive dimension. I don't have. I just kind of made it a little bit larger. I'll work it down, but thicknesses and things like that will give me a good reference point, and then I might have to make adjustments because I am gonna put gears in here, and there's always, nothing fits perfect. So there's going to be some adjustments that'll have to be made. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, leave comment in below, and I can always readdress it in another video. So after this, I shouldn't have to do too much more, and I'll probably start going into the actual build. So thank you for sticking with me for these first couple of introductory videos. And I'm looking forward to getting to the build, because that's probably what I'm better at explaining than this part. So thank you again. Sayonara.